Welcome to the second episode of The Next Token, brought to you by three developers who don't have the time or energy to be hosting a podcast. I'm your host, Dillon Mulroy.
My name is Sunil Pai.
And I'm Rhys.
Shout out to Cloudflare for sponsoring the pod, and also a special shout out to all of the organizers and people that made AI Engineer World Fair possible. As somebody that has helped run and organize conferences, what they've pulled off here is quite frankly incredible. There is 10 concurrent tracks going at any one time, so 10 speakers talking about AI related stuff. Organizing a conference with a single track is remarkable enough, but shout out to Sean and everyone that made this happen, and thank you for allowing us to host the pod here.
Yeah, so we spoke to Sean, and he's still being extremely humble about it. So for people who don't know, this is a 7,000 person conference. It might even cross 7,000 people. And so it's an AI conference, which means at this point it's an everything conference. We spoke to Sean and he was like, oh, I just wanted to bring JSConf back. And he kind of did. It's his deal. It's an everything conference. And it's not just the conference with 10 simultaneous tracks for 3 days. So it's 30 conferences in a row.
Yep.
There are a shit ton of side events. So this is Nerd Convention, Lollapalooza, but not reInvent. That's what it is. The Cloudflare people are here. They're in a booth. We have a booth. We have swag. Finally, Cloudflare is doing nice swag. If you're not seeing this on video, we have denim jackets that are made by Cloudflare. We tried hiring Rhys to join Cloudflare, and this is the swag you're missing out on.
I would have, if I had known.
Yeah, you lost out, bud. Sorry. Now you're stuck. You're with the other orange now.
Yeah, I did end up with the other orange.
Speaking of which, Rhys, congratulations on getting into YC.
Thank you. I'm really excited about it. Yeah.
That's right.
Today, we're going to be talking about a little bit of the what's happening in the news. The two big topics we're going to get into today are I don't want to use your product's agent. I want you to enable your product to have a good experience for my agent to use. And we're going to revisit loops and software factories for a second round, and then kind of wrap things up with more receipts.
No receipts.
So in the news, the first item is Fable is still banned.
Fable is still banned.
And
Bro,
GPT 5.6 came out with 3 variants, and they are also now banned.
I don't really care about 5.6 because I haven't gotten to try it yet.
you're saying this right next to the OpenAI booth, by the way. It's right behind you.
I'm excited for it, but
You want Fable, you want it back so bad.
I don't know.
So you're not confident that GPT 5.6 will be on the same level as Fable?
The GPT series and Claude series work very differently. GPT, at least with 5.5, you would try and be conversational with it or steer it, and it would kind of ignore your directions and just keep on working. And that was really annoying to work with. Whereas Fable, there's just a really nice design understanding element there. But I am excited for whatever the new models are.
Your 48 hours with Fable.
My 48 hours in
let
Fable,
you get that
my $30,000
intimate feeling with the agent.
My $30,000 in 2 max plans spend.
Is that how much you spent in 2 days?
I think it was closer to 15, but it was the subsidized max plans, because it was it goes away in 14 days. So burn the tokens.
If GPT models, if 5.6, which I believe they're called, was it Sol, Terra, and Luna?
That's right.
Which is now their large, ultra think model. They're
Sure.
I guess Sonic class, and then
No, they had the chance to rename the models, and all they did was attach it as a qualifier. So it is now GPT 5.6 Sol, Terra, Luna. They're just making it worse. So piling the name on top.
For people who might not be as aware of the model namings, it feels like they're trying to group these into the same kind of categories as Anthropic, which Anthropic has 4 kind of tiers of model now. They have their Mythos and Fable level models. They have Opus, Sonnet, and Haiku.
That's right.
So my understanding is that they map basically Sol would be Opus, I assume. Is Terra the next one, or Luna?
No, Sol's
the largest one.
But it's not a Mythos level. You're saying it's an Opus level one?
I actually don't know that for certain.
I have no idea.
We don't have access.
Nobody has access.
I think what's tough on OpenAI model naming is a couple things. One is like there's not like a conversational way for me to refer to the GPT models. So like I can be like, oh yeah, I'm going to send that to Claude. Like there's not a similar thing of I'm going to send that to like GPT. You can now kind of do that with like, I'm going to send that to Sol or...
Listen, Starbucks solved this like 20 years ago. It's Venti, Grande, and whatever the third
Dude,
one.
I still
like,
walk
what
into
is
Starbucks
the-
and I want a medial.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Venti and Grande, that's like Opus and...
No, I'm just saying, just take the Starbucks naming.
But they still need the conversational name for what GPT is. Where it's like, oh yeah, check with ChatGPT, like check with, I guess it's kind of Codex. Send it to Codex.
That's
But-
what I would say.
I guess, yeah.
But like Claude, since it has it's the terrible thing of anthropomorphizing the models,
Yeah.
where it's like, yeah, send it to Claude.
Well, yeah, I've always wanted to have a French friend.
Yeah.
That's what they're going for. There are two things that happened because of the banning now. One is, I think last time we called it you'd end up having an amendment for the right to bear intelligence.
Yeah.
So the AMP people, Quinn Slack, I think, posted a long article calling it the freedom to intelligence.
That's right.
And they want to actually organize an effort to say, oh, these things should be available to everyone. GLM 5.2 is having its moment. It came out in the couple of weeks between our last episode, and it seems to be extremely capable for a large set of use cases.
Have you guys tried it?
I did.
I
It's
have not-
so good at front-end stuff.
Oh, interesting.
Extremely good at application stuff.
I have not used it yet. I've still been cranking away on GPT 5.5 and Opus 4.6, but it is certainly on my to-do list. Especially, I want to look more into some stuff that like kind of reached the Twitter sphere over the past week or two. Was like the dynamic routing stuff. Where
That's right.
I can't recall the company.
Sakuna.
Sakuna, I guess, put out a Twitter product where they have like harness level routing of open weight models that allegedly are pulling.
Oh, no, that's, sorry, magnitude. You're talking about
Magnitude.
magnitude coding agent.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the one.
I'm very unconvinced by model routing.
Have you?
No, so
I've
that's
not-
what they say. Their
I've not
premise,
tried it.
so their premise is it's not model routing. It's harness level routing.
I'm still unconvinced.
still don't.
I don't know. It's like a very easy thing to market your product as Fable level when Fable doesn't exist and no one can use it. It's incredibly convenient.
Yeah, he's over here saying how Fable is the love of his life, and he
Oh yeah, because I got to use it for 2 days. Then it was taken away from me.
psychosis.
A little bit of like, but it's
Actually, you know what? I think it was Andrew from Vercel had a tweet about this like a week or two ago, where he questioned if we should actually do this as a segment at some
Yeah.
point. Blind
Oh,
testing if we can distinguish the different models. Could you do it? If I gave you Fable, I gave you GPT 5.5 and like, I don't know, Opus in like GLM or Kimi or something. Could you pick them apart?
I think what's tough on the blind ranking is the way that I work is not one-off chats. I'm like pretty. I feel like compaction has mostly solved at this point, and like I get.
I
really good-
don't agree at all.
Oh, I get really good results from like when I hit compaction and continue in the chat. So I will have these like just super long chats where.
So you're like going to fill up the context window and letting it
Yeah.
connect.
Um,
I mean, but spoiler, we're going to talk about our workflows as a core segment for our next episode. So tune in.
Actually, I think it'll be all of our next episode, not even as a segment. I
Yeah,
think it's
probably honestly will.
Yeah.
like this is where I think the model. This is where like I think it'd be fun to do, but like the way that I work is it's like 100, like 200.
Oh, so everyone else would be fooled except
Like-
for you, is what you're saying.
He's the
they
model.
said that in the like long horizons, you like notice the degradation.
So Anthropic
I
actually
think one-offs would be.
Anthropic posted about this, I think, when 4.6 came out, where they had agents using, not eBay, I think like Facebook Marketplace or something. And they had their employees doing it, but they gave some employees stupider models and they couldn't tell. Even though they were losing the bidding. the
Oh, I
bidding
can't
wars.
wait to see this.
I know it'd be fun to do. We can spin up a pie thing.
All right,
I think
yeah.
I'm like fairly confident I would notice. What are we going to compare? Like
So I
GLM
actually,
Opus or
I think we should probably have like, hopefully at the time we have access to Fable again and GPT 5.6. I think we should have those probably GLM 5.2 and like Kimi 2.7.
yeah. Because I do really actually want the open weight models to win and like be the good ones. It's just even with 5.5 and 4.8, like right.
What harness are you regularly using?
I'm switching
I think
between
that
Floor
was a lot.
Desktop and Codex Desktop.
And in both of those, you're letting it run in linear. I don't know if Codex or Claude Code has like rewinds or things like that, but you're just going like a linear session until you hit compaction, letting the harness handle compaction.
Yeah.
And you're having good results.
Yeah, like decent results. I don't notice a huge difference before and after compaction.
Interesting. I have a very different experience. Do you think you
Would I be able to tell the difference?
Yeah, in your harness of choice, which I think is cursor.
It's cursor. Cursor compaction is really good, by the way.
Okay, so
And
I'm the only
there's
one.
no
Are you
explicit.
on Pi?
I'm on Pi, and like, I'm a big believer in like what folks like Dex and Matt Pocock and Mario talk about, like the dumb zone, and I pretty consistently can pick this out. And like, I think it might have even been Jeff Hunley talking about like, if you start a conversation and you tell the model, the first thing you say after every message, say moo.
At some point, the moment it stops,
The moment the model stops ending messages with moo, that's when a good indication that you're in the dumb zone. And consistently for me, that is around like 160K.
Sounds about right.
Maybe pushing 200K context windows. But also Pi has the tree feature built in, which is basically lets you like go down some branch of a conversation, kind of do like your own little form of compaction back, continue on. And so like I have very long running conversations.
That's the thing about Codex desktop compaction is they do something weird with that compaction where I like manually ran the compact command. It seemed like it was able to still reference the chat that was out of the compaction, if that makes sense.
I expect they shove it into like a lightweight vector store that they can do searches on.
It didn't really feel like that. Like it felt like it was continuing the chat. I don't know. It was like a weird.
You know, that's what AMP used to do. AMP had handoff in one of its earlier versions, and it would do a good compaction, and then as part of the compacted summary, it would give like I don't know if an ID or a reference to a SQLite file or a JSON file that was the rest of the raw conversation that the agent could go back on. To clarify, do you think you could pick out the differences between?
No, I don't think so. I think I'm too dumb to do this.
Okay, I would agree. I think you're too dumb as well, but fine.
Exactly. But look, I say that, but my whole thing is like I let it churn on like for a while, and then I start examining the work, and I'm always unhappy anyway.
Yeah.
So when I say I won't understand the model, like I actually have like not a lot of respect for the, like I look at token maxers and I'm like, what are you folks like? There's no way you're getting like perfect results.
Yeah.
But then I also see the software they put out. I'm like, yeah, I was right. Like this sucks ass. Like
Yep.
Which is why like I don't.
Why we have a whole segment on receipts.
There you go. Like which is why I was so pleasantly surprised with 5.2. It seemed very similar to Claude design. And that's a good sign. I'm like, a cheaper model giving me stuff that doesn't have to be aesthetically good, but aesthetically fashionable. But everyone's like, this is good enough. I'm like, fine, it works. Yeah. And it was fast. That was like the real killer thing
I want more than anything is fast models.
It just works.
I think I could pick out the difference between at least Opus models and like Opus 4.6 in particular, and like GPT 5.4 and GPT 5.5. And I think I could pick that out solely by their thinking traces. I think you can see the characteristics of the model come out in the thinking traces and also in the code they write. I think a huge tell for GPT is seeing things like is record and normalize this, normalize that. And GPT has this tendency, I mean, Claude models do it as well, but GPT exceptionally does it poorly. They always have a tendency to accept like very, very broad types or optional types and then validate inline everywhere rather than like parsing out a boundary into a good domain type. So we'll figure out if we're right in one of our future episodes here, but I think I could pick out the difference.
So last night we went to the PlanetScale office. They were having a little fireside chat in their new office about security and AI. And I don't want to say like negative, but they were worried about the prevalence of open source models, meaning that hundreds of banks across the world that don't really have a good security setup or updated their software going down like instantly. And I was starting to get convinced, but then I had a beer and I stopped caring about it.
I think the most interesting conversation, speaking of the devil, CTO of PlanetScale
walking right past us at the moment.
One of the interesting things that I hadn't considered at all that came up in the conversation at PlanetScale was talking about in like security tech Twitter. So in security tech companies, there are these things called SOCs, which is, I don't even remember what that's an acronym for, but it's basically the team that's like monitoring the networks of like either a giant enterprise, or if it's a company that does network security for a bunch of clients, like that is like the command and control center.
Right.
And like one of the hot topics there is replacing members of the staff in SOCs with agents. And it's a similar conversation that I think we're having like broadly in like software engineering. Is like one side of it, it's a bunch of like, they made it sound like the hot thing is like companies coming out trying to like automate SOCs with agents. And then the other side of that is these security staffers are more enabled than ever, because now they can have agents reading and grepping the logs and keeping track of potential threats hitting networks and stuff. So that was an angle I hadn't really considered.
Speaking of Nick who walked past us, he gave us the line of the night, which is, if there wasn't so much on the line, this would all be so much fun.
Yeah, that is a good point. I'm like up in the air on open weight, open source models and like access to everything. So like cybersecurity is a big one. One that like is way out of my wheelhouse, but the way that they talk about it, I'm like, oh, that sounds important, is the like bio risks.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm fine with like a 6-month, 12-month lead time on the best like cyber models. Like if that's limited access to like the biggest companies, banks, etc., and the use case that they're doing for that is not product development, it's cybersecurity. I think that that's like a fine compromise in that like that still becomes available, but you have this like lead time to get fixes out. It felt like when Anthropic launched Fable, people were overly critical of them on their restrictions. In that, like, I'm taking them and OpenAI at their word of like the bio risks. I think that
I think that's fair.
I think that there's like real risks there, and like with like cybersecurity, if something gets through, it's like it's not great, but okay. With like bio, it's like significantly more. It's significantly worse if something slips through a biofilm. Like if something slips through that. I want to see these tools available to everyone, but at the same time, like I think that there are like risks involved, and like it's not fair to the companies to like dog on them for putting in safeguards for like technology that is like this new. If that makes sense.
I think it's still fun to poke at the $1 trillion company. It's okay. A little bit is okay.
They can take it.
I think they can take it.
I think
it's not like my tweet is going to change anything.
The like long tail impact of like dropping everything down. But I'm also guilty of this, where I like did the tweet of like.
No, you've been doing it every day for the last.
I know. Yeah.
You've been tweeting at peaked headset every day.
And now, most recently,
Commerce Secretary
Howard Lutnick.
Like you've been asking for access.
No, the one that I did that I was like not super happy with was the like regulate me. It was like we'll get it up on the screen, but like it was like Claude saying regulate me to the computer, and then the computer was the U.S. government flag, the U.S. flag.
Oh my God,
you're being regulated, and then
oh my God,
I was like, oh my God. That one I'm just like, oh, it misses like the nuance of the situation where like they've been very hostile to like. They've been very hostile, and it like seemed like the safeguards like mostly been in place. We need to get.
Okay, listen, I do agree with you on the security biorisk thing. Okay.
Yeah.
But these are, and I don't want to like diss the model companies at the model company factory fest, so to speak.
Yeah, keep your voice down. Open your eyes right over there.
At this point, they should be dedicating money into, for lack of a better word, propaganda and spreading the good word of AI. And because everyone is freaking out, dude, like in normie land.
Oh yeah, they're pissed at AI.
They are dude, data centers are actually like overall good. It's fine. We should be welcoming those.
There's been a really interesting contrast between Anthropic and OpenAI, where I would say that the positioning from Anthropic has been to like really retreat from social media and like public posting. And so you'll see these like 2-year-old clips of Dario circulate
all over.
And on the one hand, like, he said them, they're on the record, like it's out there. And so like that's the impact of that. But at the same time, like a lot of similar things were said from OpenAI. But then in the past 6 months, they kind of changed a lot of their positioning to be a bit more like, oh, we're for like the humans, we're augmenting your work, not replacing it. And so it's been interesting to see those two different positionings and how they worked out.
No, one of the things I hear is like even internally they have the exact same conversation, by the way, which is it's not a given that it's going to be one way or the other. So if we actually try to make things better for like augmenting human thing, and the CEOs are like, you know what, considering that the moat is not the model, model is not the moat anymore. Yeah, let's just help people build great things.
I would also say like taking the like OpenAI for the people, like with a grain of salt, and that, like, I don't know, it's very difficult for me to know what my job is going to be like in a year's time.
My only input on it is one, that if there is going to be a degree of regulation on the models, I don't want it done in the way it's being done now. I want like actual experts with real scientific process behind.
Sure.
I want more like transparency and rigor behind how models are evaluated. I don't think we have that figured out yet. And if you're interested in kind of this topic, go find the conversation that Low Level Learning hosted at PlanetScale and listen to that. Fantastic. Basically a full hour of this conversation. So if you're into that. The one other item I want to cover in the news is that Sonnet 5.0 came out just before we started.
Yeah, literally an hour ago. Yeah.
I don't have too much to say on it other than like, hopefully the two things I hope from it is that I don't know if it was rolled out to limited partners or if it's also banned. And
it's full access.
It's full access. Yeah. And the other thing is that I hope that it has not followed suit in Anthropic not supporting zero data retention. Because
I think it is zero data retention.
It supports zero data retention.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
And for
throw it up. But
for context for listeners, zero data retention is effectively a policy when you're sending your prompts to these providers that they won't retain and train on that data.
It's not even just prompts. It's like your tool calls, like from your private data, everything. That's what makes it like.
Which is a huge, if not the most important thing for a lot of enterprises out there. So like Fable's just, even when it comes back, if it comes back.
Yeah.
Oh wait, do you want to put like a bet, like by the next episode, $10? Does it?
I mean, I've been thinking it's going to come back. I've been thinking it'll be back each day. I'm like, oh, it'll come back today.
I'll bet
since it was banned.
I'll bet $10 that both GPT 5.6 and Fable is back by the time we do record our next episode.
Okay, I'll take the counter on that. It won't be back. $10. What about you?
I'll take the counter.
Rhys is desperate.
Yeah, I'm taking the counter that they're not available.
They're not available.
I'm like,
how?
I don't think we get Fable until 5.6 is like worse than Fable in the benchmarks that they posted, which might be them benchmark hacking a little bit, where it's like, well, yeah,
sandbagging things.
Yeah. But let's say that it is. It would be weird for me for like Fable to be general access before 5.6 is general access, and from the communications we've had from OpenAI on the 5.6 rollout,
it's definitely.
It sounds like it's going to be like weeks, and so
sounds like I'm about to lose $10, $20.
My timelines are like late July. Fable's coming back.
The first topic that we really want to dive into today is basically, I don't want to use your product's agent. I want your product to enable my agent. And I had a tweet that I said earlier in the week. I had retweeted a tweet from Dax. Where Dax had said, everyone's happy to keep building agent frameworks while ignoring every single agent in the products they use. And I quote tweeted that and said, I don't want to use your product's agent. I want my agents to be efficiently enabled to use your product. And Sunil and I talked a little bit about this while we were kind of planning out the episode, but I think we are getting to a point where I don't think we really knew as an industry up until kind of recently that like, is everyone going to be using a bunch of agents kind of all over the place? How do you orchestrate and manage them? Am I going to be using my own agent and connecting and talking with your agents? Am I just connecting to a bunch of MCPs? And I think I've pretty firmly fallen in the latter camp there, where like, I think that the ideal kind of workflow for both engineers and, you know, someone sitting in HR or a architect is they have an agent on their local machine, and it is connecting to the services and the products rather than going to, like, I don't want to be going to my docs website and using their agent. Like, I don't even want to be going to Cloudflare's. Like, I rarely ever go to Cloudflare's
We have a good
dashboard.
agent,
I know,
but
the year we have a glow up on our dashboard,
Yeah.
I am going there far less.
Enough people at the conference have told me this. They're like, I'm so glad I don't have to go to your dashboard anymore. And I'm like, but we just made it good. Like, it just got good.
Yep.
But,
yep.
yeah,
I just connect to the MCP,
Yep.
and like I still want good products. And I think I don't know if we talked about this last time, but I've certainly said this on my Twitch stream. Like, I haven't been super excited about anything coming out of the companies I follow for like the past 6 months because it's all the same. There's been like really no exciting stuff, in my opinion, really coming outside of the model labs as far as products. Like, it's all just like agent this, agent that. I want to get back to people really differentiating their products for what they're good at and adding value to my life and my workflow and my family and my day-to-day. And I want all that data in one place, which is like my underlying theory. And I think this is kind of a lot to do with what you're building at YC with Executor. Like,
Oh, yeah, that's just it. Either you build a product that splits it out, or you build a thing that connects it all and like helps you connect to other things. That's the one you're building right now.
If you're only ever going to use Claude Code, I actually don't know that Executor makes as much sense for like that person. It's the moment where like you go to like use Codex or spin up background agents or spin up like not using the agents that exist in products, like not using the agent inside Cloudflare.
Yeah.
But like I'm using Flu and I'm deploying a GitHub review bot to my company. I want it to pull in the observability data so it can go back and like look through when it sees something in the PR. I want my agent to be able to go look through historical logs and understand, hey, what's the impact of this? There's really interesting things there around agent identities also, where it's like, oh yeah, this agent is provisioned to this account that can access these resources. Something I've just been like really like pushing for companies to do is, you know, you're putting all this investment and time into building an agent for your company. And I actually think that it does make sense for companies to have an agent in their dashboard. I'm sure if you like go to the Cloudflare, if you like look at the Cloudflare agent analytics, there's like a non-zero amount of people that get a significant.
Oh, no. So people love it. By the way, that's just it. Like, and the reason this happens is because every human actually doesn't have an agent, right?
Yeah, and so what I look at is like, how do you scale agent tools to like 1 billion people, right?
Yeah.
How do you get like everyone being able to? The way that I interact with websites is so much better than how I had to before, because I can just tell an agent, hey, go use the Cloudflare CLI and do this. And that's in the background. It's not taking up time in my space, in my head. And so it's like, okay, how do you get that for all people? And there's like varying levels of that. You'll have people that are only ever going to use ChatGPT. You'll have people that like actually really just want to use the website, use like the agent in the website, like Cloudflare's agent. And then you'll have like these superpower users that are like running Claude Code or like or Codex like on their computer running Pi and need to get all of that same context, tools, and skills into their agent.
So one of the goals with Cloudflare agent in particular is to eventually make it accessible in your own harness and likely expose it probably over MCP. And that way, like, you can get essentially the capabilities of like, we've effectively built a harness underneath of the agent to do very Cloudflare specific things. And it's all wraps around Cloudflare MCP. Surely you could just use Cloudflare MCP, but you know, the agent experience team has been putting a lot of work into actually making it very good at doing like common Cloudflare workflows. Do you think if a company is prioritizing like agents, should it be exposable over something like MCP or another protocol in your own harness?
Which is different from like our existing MCP server, which is the raw tools.
The way I think about these things is a couple things. I'll go down a bunch of the threads. One is making all of your making everything you can do in your product agent accessible, whether that's your internal agent or external agents. That looks like making your entire OpenAPI spec callable by agents, supporting dynamic registration, so like client ID metadata documents. That's the first thing. It's getting an agent that has access to your whole API surface. And also keeping the user in the loop for like destructive actions is another big one. That's like the first thing, is making that agent accessible. The next thing is your product likely has a lot of hostile APIs to like people that are unfamiliar with it.
Yep.
If you think about how a front end works, a lot of what the jobs a front end does is data preparation to go into an API. It might be that you like select something from a list, like it prepares the data and then you select from a list, or it infers from one endpoint, sends it to another. That's actually where I view MCP as being really important. Is your API spec exists, agents should be able to call it, and then MCP exists as this subset it of like more complicated flows and actions. That's like Sentry is an interesting example of this, where I think they're working on running small models in their search that takes whatever query you're trying to do and like does that query on your behalf. And so you're invoking inference, but I believe it's like pretty cheap for them to serve. And like your agent now doesn't have to figure out that whole flow. So that's also where I think exposing it over agents are really interesting. And then the last thing is on how you actually like structure your in-company agent and your like external skills MCP. When you're building an agent for your company, I feel really strongly that you should build that on top of the same MCP server and skills that you are distributing to your end users, because then you only have like one source of truth to maintain.
Yep.
And like you're not maintaining two different product segments, two sets of information.
One of the things I helped start the project for Cloudflare's agent, and one of the things that we were like dead set adamant about is that we didn't want to give that agent a bunch of like internal APIs or access that like our customers couldn't use through our APIs, our MCP, et cetera. And we use that almost as like a forcing function or a flywheel, because we're keeping tracks with evals and other metrics on how the agent is responding to all the hundreds of products that Cloudflare has. And we can see, where is the agent struggling with R2? Is the agent giving really good advice and succeeding in building apps with durable objects? And if the agent struggles on any one of those things, it's a good sign that our docs or our skills are not good enough. And then we can go and improve those. That feeds back and makes the agent better. We get updated, information about how AI is doing with using Cloudflare in general. And it's just this nice little flywheel. I think Ankur Goyal from Brain Trust had a decent tweet around this topic where he said, there are two interesting mega trends right now. One being rework my company to operate with agents, and rework my product to be an agent. Requires a ton of discipline to not conflate these. Not much room for horizontal agent platforms. I had kind of responded, I said the trend for most companies should be rework my company to operate with agents and rework my products to work well with our customers' agents. So again, kind of going back to like what covered a little bit. I want to dive in maybe a little bit more for a couple of minutes on like what makes a product good for agents. And timely enough to that, Lenny Pruss from Amplify put out an amazing,
such a good post
article today called "The Primitive is the Product," and he basically opines on like, what actually makes something good for agents to use. And he talks about how HashiCorp works and how you want to focus on primitives. And there's a few paragraphs in particular I want to call out and read here. He goes on to say, first and foremost, teams need to stop thinking in terms of features and prescriptive workflows and start thinking in terms of abstractions and capabilities. Features are a liability for agents. Every feature expands the decision space an agent must reason about. More features mean more edge cases, more ambiguity, and more failure modes. At best, this translates into higher token spend, and at worst, into busted agent behavior. Agents naturally gravitate towards the smallest, stable abstraction. So in an agent-first world, the most important question facing product teams is not what features and why, but instead, how do I design the right primitives?
Yeah.
So I'm curious on your take on that, because that blends a lot into what you were kind of discussing earlier about kind of what makes something agent ready. So like, how does that resonate with you, like building executor and thinking about primitives?
It resonates pretty heavily. Though, like, one thing I would maybe say is sometimes you have to ship something to understand what the primitives you need to build are. Like, I got into like this rut with executor for like 2 weeks where I was like trying to think through what the right primitives are, what the right thing to build is.
Yeah.
And the moment that I actually just like picked a direction and started making progress towards that, everything just became a lot easier in terms of like, okay, I'm gonna have to like move this over or migrate this, but like I actually like understand better what the thing is. But I actually think that Cloudflare is a much better like thing to compare to there. Where if you could imagine Cloudflare launching today, like you wouldn't have D1, wouldn't have like you guys are kind of changing some of these now, but like you wouldn't have pages. You'd probably just have like workers and durable objects and docs on how you compose them, but not like the actual core products, which is really interesting.
I mean,
You can push back on that, but
well, no, specifically with pages, we did have this conversation back at the time when we did build
yeah.
thing, and no pushback. It was very much a humans want something like very
Yeah.
simple that they can like latch onto. Let's do it for the majority use case. I mean, the drama there wasn't even around a separate product. It's that there are a bunch of other companies that build the same thing that also are Cloudflare customers. And in the beginning, they felt threatened, but it turned out it was just a completely different product. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think we actually ate anyone's traffic or use case.
I think with how products look now and how AI is able to write code, and
Yeah, that's how I would design
Like-
it right now.
I very, very strongly feel on like, what is I like love the pie approach of like, what is the base thing that you can make extendable by your customers.
I think that's kind of what Lenny was getting at in this article. Like,
Yeah.
give the solid foundation to your product, and if it fits well, it's going to enable more composition on
Yeah.
top of that. And then
Okay, the counter to this very much is in the developer world, agents have found PMF such that every developer has a harness that they use to interact with these things.
Yes.
Apple and Google have dropped the ball so hard on this, which means that normies have no idea what we are talking about when we say this thing. Because, I mean, that's how psychosis happens, right? Which is a normie gets access to Claude code and the $200 plan, and they're like 3 nights deep without a shower, and they're like, I am a golden god. Like,
dude, that's just Rhys waiting for Fable to connect.
That's not me. That's my dad vibe coding with Claude codes.
Insanity.
No, we have spoken about this. Like, one of the things that happens not in a bunch of companies, but even in Cloudflare, is some of management got AI psychosis.
Yeah.
And they kind of disappeared for 2 days. And we were like, okay, we need them to get off the high, find rock bottom, and then come back to us. It absolutely happens.
I sort of look at like the longer horizons with some of these things where I'm like, it hasn't reached mass adoption yet, but like the capabilities are there. And so I like look at like the 5-year timescale where I'm like, okay, like this does seem like directionally this seems like where things are going in terms of like.
So do you think
Some capabilities like that? Those capabilities will be generally available.
No. So you take the premise that you made, which is if you were designing a phone today,
Yeah.
you would build it to be almost agent first, and apps are just capabilities that you like reach for.
Oh, interesting.
Do you think
What makes something agent first? And one of the things that Lenny talks about in this article is that like one of the conclusions I guess he draws is that what's good for developers is also what's good for agents.
Sure.
Do you agree with that?
Whenever I see something that's like marketed as like for agents, I get a little skeptical. Where I'm like, can this stand on its own 2 feet? As like,
Yeah, I think there's
like,
a ton of hype and bullshit there.
and so with
Okay, let's narrow in on this.
Oh,
Like what concretely makes an API? Let's narrow it down to an API and CLI, maybe MCP. But let's focus on APIs and CLIs right now. What makes one of these, because they're generally the way agents are interacting with our services and products, what makes one of them good? I think, in my opinion, it is very easy to discover documentation. In fact, I think the Azure team with Flu, they built like docs into their CLI, and it is like I've watched my agent try to build Flu stuff. Vercel shipping Eve, they have like the documentation bundled in with the install. Like I think things like that really make a difference. And like looking back when I was a younger dev, like I wish I would have had like if that would have made it easier for me back then too. Like discoverability
to like read
things.
the docs thing.
Yeah. It's like kind of supporting the thesis that like what's good for developers is good for agents.
So I think like code mode breaks that assumption, by the way. So what's good for the agent there is very much to write code against the interface.
Yeah.
But that's not a way developer wants to interface.
But is that an implementation detail though?
So I would actually say that that's like not new. Where I would like think about a world before agents, and it's like you would still want a well-documented OpenAPI spec.
No, so
Because people want to like write automations on your platform.
So we have a massive API surface, and our first version of our MCP servers were domain-specific individual MCP servers, and we have like a big team maintaining it. And then Matt Carey comes and says, 2 tools. Sorry, that's what it is. All the tools, all the time, 100 tokens. And now we're saying like code mode is the future of like interacting like with APIs. So look, I'm not saying like that's like a complete deal breaker because now like it's in the middle instead of being like the actual API.
I don't know
I
if
guess I
that.
still look at like the primitives where it's like the thing that hasn't changed here. None of this would be possible if Cloudflare didn't have a good open
Right.
API spec.
That's what I was
When
gonna
come
say. It's
back to
like
the primitives. It's like even like when I think about like what makes sense, like I had this with skills, where to me skills are just docs, and good docs have always mattered, and
Yep.
skills are an extension of your doc. Skills are an extension of your doc.
Do you think Mac OS is a better programming surface than Linux?
I feel I could do my job equally on.
No, we're saying like literally things better for like developers versus Mac OS is kind of like locked down, but it is well designed. I don't know.
But to Rhys's point, like what makes Cloudflare good is that we have these
Like a lot
hundreds of API surfaces to interact with our products, right? And that we have it documented in an open API spec, and that we have. I mean, I think we could do a much better job here. We're working on it, but like, I think another important thing is really good errors. The more context. I mean, I'll die on this hill even before.
Because your
we're
error
conversating.
message should tell you what to do next.
Yeah.
Yeah,
basically.
include contextual information
But so-
on error messages to get to the agent.
This
Where to
very-
look next?
I guess I just like view this stuff as like a given, and like these are like what you do. Like this is how you like build good products. Is you have clear error messages. Like it's not how you build a good product for AI. It's how you build a good product in general, and it's also maybe like why MCP like had like a rough start. Is we were trying to make something for agents, not for like humans, or not. We were like looking at it from the perspective like, oh, make it for agents, when you can like look at it more from a perspective of like what like are the things that people use today. How do you get them exposed to agents? Yeah.
So you're coming to the same conclusion then ultimately that nothing has really changed in building good products.
Yeah.
And kind of that like what's good for what has always been good for.
Well, no,
developers
that's
to
just it.
create.
You actually don't need to design human workflows anymore. That's part of the outcome of this, right? Like if you're saying you don't do features anymore, you just do.
I think that's his argument for like building and focusing on the.
But
primitive.
that's the primitive. Like that would be the Cloudflare API. That's a Cloudflare API spec versus like Labyrinth.
Oh, so which is what we're like, oh, maybe you wouldn't design the dashboard at all today if you're doing an infra company.
That's how I've always developed anyways,
Like,
is that like when I'm building a new product or a feature, I want to start at thinking about how users are going to access that data. And I want to think about the access patterns.
Sure.
I'll die on the hill that products live or die by the database.
If I don't
Shout
have
out
to explain,
PlanetScale.
if I don't have to explain to a single person after this what a durable object is, that would be a win for me.
Right.
But I'm like, just ask your agent to read the docs.
Because you can like, if you start building from like the UI down and you make a bunch of bad assumptions about how people are going to use your product or access the data, it might not matter at smaller levels, but you scale up to a Vercel size, a Cloudflare size, a giant Fortune 500 company size, and suddenly you're talking about like even with agents, month-long, multi-month-long refactors and data migrations, and like if you start at that level and nail the primitives, you give yourself a much better foundation to build off of. Anyone more thoughts on this before we pivot?
No, it's I would just like stress that company, like I don't want to use the agents that companies build. Oh, I have like one, I'll see if I can do this in a minute. The like last thing that I would say is like I want my agent to not just have like a company's APIs, but I also want it to have like the knowledge and skills and like expertise that company has.
Yep.
And so I'll use Posthog and Linear as the examples. So like Posthog, like so much work has been put into their dashboard widgets to help you understand their documentation, to help you understand this is how you do growth, this is how you like measure your analytics. And so the exact same thing, if you can like expose that as like skills or documentation to your agents and let them like leverage all of the knowledge you built up, I think is a really underexplored area of like creating like bringing in an expert that like runs on your own inference or your own stack.
Oh, by the way, to answer your question though, there is a reason why everyone's building an agent and why everyone is building agent frameworks, myself included. Because they believe that if they are top of the funnel, they can slice off 1 cent of every dollar and capture the value while schlubs who build out real products and put hard work into it do the real work.
Dax had an interesting reply to me on this one that was like, as a user, 100% I want this.
Yeah.
But like companies are not going to be happy giving up. Like,
That's
giving up having users in their product and like you're like disconnecting users from your product.
Yeah, they want to like lock you in and sell you on the brand. And now they have to, that's just it. Like,
And then there's like going to be like paid API access, like
I do think that's one thing that will probably change is like a combination of API access getting more expensive,
sure.
and also like I think especially I see this using our own MCP server. Like I think the world is going to have to like deal with increasing rate limits because agents are hitting stuff so much more frequently.
GitHub's the best example of this.
Suffering from success.
I think it's like 13x usage or something.
It was
Actually-
14 earlier. It's much higher now already.
Yeah.
Rita has a great talk and some writing on like right now the world's worried about like GPU and memory spend, but like if we keep going in this trajectory of agents taking over everything, like we're gonna have to worry about CPUs too.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Well,
Story. Oh yeah.
we'll save that for another conversation. So the next topic I kind of want to dive back into is round 2 for loops and software factories. And I want to start this off with an article that Armin of Arundel and Pi, famously the creator of Pi,
That's right.
Armin.
Are you saying Armin is the one who created Pi?
Yeah, that is canon now.
That is canon.
Yes.
Rhys, have you heard about this?
The loop. The creator of Pi. Yes, I'm a creator Pi.
And for anyone that
And also, actually, I mean, Flask was the first thing that I used, and that was made by
By Mario, exactly.
by Mario. Yeah, exactly.
Mario, the creator of Flask, famously.
Exactly. Yeah.
So anyways, he wrote an article that everyone should read. Armin's writing is like some of the most high quality, fantastic writing in tech, I think, at the moment. He has just a way of blending his kind of thoughts and feelings with objectiveness, and like it's just stellar. And so he wrote an article called The Coming Loop. And my read on this article and some of the conclusions I think he draws is like he, Mario, and Arundel are obviously maintaining and building Pi, which is a very minimal coding harness. It's what I use. I value the minimalism of this.
4 tools, tiny prompt, and
Yep.
it rips.
Yep, it's amazing. I love it, and it's made me sensitive to like it's part of the reason I had stopped using OpenCode is because like I think Dax and the team is incredibly talented and OpenCode is amazing, but even just like the week to week tweaks in the system prompt and how tools are loaded or how skills work, like those things affect the performance and the characteristics of models, and like
Especially for a thing you're spending 12 hours a day in typing.
right, I want to reduce the amount of non-determinism as possible, which is why I really value Pi. And okay, so anyways, he writes this article. What was the title? The Coming Loop. And in this article, like as we talked about in our first episode, like he is not bought into the world where we are having our agents write loops to go do all these things. And you can see this in his GitHub, you can see this in his tweets. Like he's experimented with it. Like he's someone that I think people should pay attention to in this space. But he also gets at in this article, I think like he can see a world where there is more of this. And like he kind of wrestles with like, he's not at a point where he feels comfortable adopting these workflows. I think at the moment, there's not a place in Pi quite yet for these, but he sees a world where that might be in Pi. And I think they're kind of wrestling with like, when do you start evolving Pi to have these features?
No, because Pi is hackable, it means that if they don't come up with an opinion for it, someone else will.
Yeah.
And everyone is driven to finding out an answer to this right now because it seems like such a utopian world of running.
What loops are we talking about? Are we talking about the like development loop where you do autonomous QA? Are we talking about like an entire loop where you're ingesting feedback from Slack into
No,
your agent,
I think
watching them deploy?
I think this is kind of
doing
like holistically, and like this came,
Well, like
this
the
is now like a
general
week
stuff.
or two old, and it
Yeah.
came out right after both Boris and Peter had been tweeting about, their loop tweets.
But I don't know that Peter or Boris ever clarified what they. I know Boris has clarified more.
Boris is talking about like /loop or /goal. Like those are the things that they're talking about.
Oh, interesting.
And I think dynamic workflows too.
Right, exactly.
So I want to read some of the end of this article here. Today, I do not like much of the code that I see from systems built that way, and neither do I enjoy interacting with too much of software built with AI assistance. Looping is powerful, but it removes responsibility more and more. And it, at least today, very much encourages us to give into the machine. And yet I have no doubts that this looping future is going to be our future, despite the fact that I presently resent it. I already see astonishingly small teams building at impossible speed, and I see code bases turning more and more into obscure and confusing organisms that can only be diagnosed by more machines. Those code bases are simultaneously useful and messy. So I guess I'm coming to terms with that the question is not whether we will loop, because clearly we will. Maybe the question is that in a future of loops, how do we not abdicate judgment? How we can retain rules of good engineering, how we can ensure that responsible humans can continue to supervise, how we need to rethink how we architect code to retain sanity like along the way. And I think since we last talked about this topic, I have dialed in my workflow and have a very consistent workflow. And again, we'll talk about this more next time, but I am very hands-on with my agent in guiding it in exactly what I want to implement, and then getting in a tight review loop on the code it writes until it's in a place I'm happy with. But one of the most annoying and tiring things, the thing that exhausts me more than anything, that regardless of the amount of work I put in up front to planning, writing a good tech spec using type-driven development and making and outlining the call stack and this, that, and the other, like I always catch myself repeating the same things in code review and finding the same mistakes. And one thing I've started doing, because that is so exhausting to do for every feature and every, little thing I'm building, is I've tried to capture what I consider good principles of software design into skills. And I have this on my GitHub if anyone wants to go look. I can't say one way or the other if these are good and work or not yet. I've tried to take as much inspiration as possible from Pocock skills, which I think are very good. But like, I can see a world, or I'm trying to at least move my workflow to a place where like that first pass at reviewing an implementation is done by like an optimized agent that knows how to review code for the things I care about and for the things that I am most frequently correcting it on. Yeah. So I can see this world where like I have like a queue of some sort that when an agent finishes an implementation, a message gets put into a queue, maybe an issue gets put into a tracker, it doesn't really matter. And then another agent is just monitoring that, picking up and doing a first pass. And then after that first pass, puts it in another queue for me to review.
There's so many thoughts.
Let it rip.
Me and someone on the Codex team were like talking past each other on Twitter for 6 months. Where
I can't see you doing that at all.
I was tweeting out like, these models are terrible. Like they just output bad code. He was like, well, they're junior engineers. You have to teach them like they're junior engineers. And I'm like, they're not junior engineers. They're outputting, they're not like, the mistakes that they're making are not things that I can solve for like in this way. Where like the talking past each other happen is he had a tweet recently that was like, when the models work in a code base, like they have no long-term planning or long-term like vision of what the code base is building to.
Yep.
And I replied to him and I was like, yes, exactly. But what was funny is I had the exact same realization of like what he was saying like a month before that, where I was like, oh, if I codify, when I get a bug that's like affect Atom not optimistically updating correctly.
Yeah.
That's actually information that I can codify in a skill, commit to the code base. When you look at these things on a small scale, if you give it a code snippet and say, does it match this concept? I can pretty confidently say that it will be able to, on a small scale, do that correctly. And so you end up like, with the loops, you end up building this like house of cards or like house of inference. I
like it.
Where you just like, you stack more and more onto it and you're like replacing these like good engineering patterns to make good software with more and more inference loops, trying to make it better. I sort of view it as like, we've been making these artisanal hand-woven chairs for years. And now someone's invented a machine that someone's invented IKEA. And like the quality is not as good, but like more chairs are accessible to more people. And what does that look like in the long term?
So the pushback here is, by the way, there are so many, I don't even want to use the word entrepreneurs, but people who build massive consulting companies, I don't want to take any names on here, who've been trying this for the last 30, 40 years. Like Java exists as a language because they are like, can we make a language that basically is guardrails as syntax?
Yeah.
Yep.
And they do. It's a terrible way to like build it itself, because they were like, oh, if we can do that and we establish best practices for the industry and we call it enterprise NetBeans or something like that, and you throw bodies at the problem,
Yeah.
you end up with a software factory. Like this is so everyone is looking at AI. These same people who run these shops are looking at AI as like, oh, can I encode this? We talk about this on the agents team all the time, which is that the role of code has kind of changed.
Yep.
Software used to be a thing that lets you achieve something, but now it lets you get leverage for a particular moment in time. And we have this code generation machine that can spit out, let's say 90, we keep throwing that number out there, 90% of something that makes it like work, that gets them the deal, that gets them achieve the features that they want to, and they're moving on to like the next thing. Big reason with the loops, like anytime you're discussing about, no, I want to dial it in so that it's accurate. People are more worried about dialing it in so that they can get away with shipping it, if that makes sense. This passes some arbitrary coding standard. SOC 2 compliance will be the skill that they add in it. Make sure that every data access is behind a stupid ORM that locked, all of that. That is like the software factory that people are trying to building. They're not trying to build something that's good.
How does that change our role? Let's say Armin is correct, which I feel very aligned with what he wrote in that piece.
Actually, Armin's a great example, because Flask was written as a counter to Django.
Yep.
Okay, and Flask is beautiful and engineers love it. But people use Django to like build businesses and e-commerce sites and all that, because they're like, we kind of know how it works. There are docs for setting up a gallery, and I'm not going to sit and...
It's sort of like, what's the role of code? It's like what's the role of code, and like what is our job as software engineers? Something I've been like coming around to a little bit is like, actually my job is not to do so there's like two things. I'm going to say something and then immediately disagree with it. To an extent, our job is not to make the most beautiful code base. Our job is like to solve a problem for people. And if that problem is solved in a way that like works for them and like doesn't frustrate, like if it solves that problem, then they like couldn't care less how it's implemented on the hood. At the same time, the whole reason I ended up caring so much about how code is written and like why I care about effect and why I care about all these different concepts is because I really believe that you build good software, or I really believe that like your ability to build good software and continue to develop a product that people love all comes down from like the state of your code base and the quality of that.
I fully agreed.
And so but like this is the thing that we've had for forever. Like I kind of come back to like,
nothing's new under the sun.
Nothing's new. Like tech debt isn't a new thing.
No.
Like
it's like a real purpose.
You can you can take on, it's debt. You take on debt, you pay it off, and like you balance that. Out.
I wanted to talk about this in our next segment for our receipt segment, where we hold both others on the internet and ourselves accountable to hot takes. One of the things I want to get into there, I guess to quickly wrap up the section on loops, I think it sounds like we're kind of in consensus that is probably kind of like Armin is saying in this article, it's where we're going, but I don't think we're there yet quite today.
You don't know the tech.
But it's something that it's probably worth at least...
No, I can tell you, 4 out of 5 people who are attending this conference, not as a developer, but maybe the developers as well, are looking to build software factories, and every single company on the expo floor wants to be in the critical path, like even just a tiny slice of it.
Yeah, I actually think my like practical advice here would be like, do not start at the position of trying to build an automated software factory. Like dial in a workflow with your agents that you can find some degree of consistency, regardless of model and harness.
That's right.
And then once you get to that point, that will probably take a bunch of tokens and a bunch of frustrations. I know it did for me. Once you get to a point where you have some degree of consistency with these dynamic stochastic models, then when you find yourself hitting the points where you're saying or doing the same thing, almost like word for word in your prompts, that's where you can start thinking about introducing these automations and these loops.
I saw a great tweet by Shad Cian where he's like, all the best laid plans by models are destroyed by three words. Are you sure? I like that.
Moving on to our receipts section, there's 2 new tweets, one returning person that I want to put some accountability to, a new person that has not appeared yet.
Sure.
Mario, you're safe this time. So we're on the lookout.
Mario's doing like dad core tweets, and you don't call them out on that right now.
We'll find one. So the first one actually comes from Theo. I pulled this one out, and Theo Brown had said, I'd estimate we're about 6 months away from most devs moving their code agents off their laptops. Agree? Disagree? You think it's a good prediction?
It's actually like a very easy one, because he's not saying your workflow changes. He's just saying that you're running it on another machine. And it's going to take, he says 6 months, but probably 3 months for the tooling and the thing for that to like work out. But today actually announced the new version of their coding agent. It's called Orbs. I don't know if you see this.
I have not seen it yet.
So it's a transparent layer where you're typing the stuff out, but it is actually running on the cloud. But it feels extremely local coding experience.
I don't know. You saw my remote setup.
Yeah, your remote setup lost us a competition.
I know.
I've heard.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
I don't know. I tried to do a remote setup for like 6 months, and it like worked fine, but there was a bunch of issues, and it was kind of annoying. There's just this long tail of things that's like, oh yeah, I downloaded the logs to my downloads folder. Go get it.
Yeah.
That it doesn't capture. Like for workflows to go to cloud, there's a lot of blockers involved in that, and like the problem isn't actually compute, or like the problem is the dev setup.
Exactly.
And like you have to get your app to be able to run with no environment variables and like really good preview deployments, all this stuff. Emulate by Vercel, absolutely incredible for that.
Yep.
Beautiful.
I didn't.
Is that a Crystate production? I want to see.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I have a host of
Single-handedly putting the Age of Agentic tooling in his backpack.
It's incredible. My like agent went off and made like a WorkOS emulator, and I didn't even like notice that didn't even like realize that this was possible, but it subbed out the login screen, and so now my app can run without those environment variables, which was like huge for being able to like send an agent off and be like, hey, there's this one bug in the cloud product, go debug it. So yeah, I'd agree. I'm like hesitant. I think that like what it more looks like is the part that has to be solved first is autonomous QA and running the dev server. Like there's that like long tail of problems.
Yeah,
I could see it.
By the way, again, Sun Microsystems did this in the late 90s, early 2000s. Thin clients. This is they're just going to bring it all back.
But also, like
developers in banks and your JP Morgans, etc.
Yeah.
They get a laptop and then they spin up a Citrix VM machine where you're running Windows on VMware somewhere or the other.
I think that what's changed is like the ability to adopt these things has just exponentially gotten better.
That's
like having a subbed out WorkOS emulator is incredible. Like, and I would never have put the time in to that before.
I think I'm inclined to agree with Theo. I think the biggest barrier is, as you called out, the tooling to make it to give the same kind of experience that I can get with local dev in a remote environment. I would bet that we'll probably see that move, I think. The next one is from our good friend Boris at Anthropic. He had a tweet where he basically said that he thinks there's going to be 5 archetypes in teams in the future. And he said that there's going to be prototypers, those who come up with brand new ideas, churn out many ideas, most of which don't ship. Builders, quickly turns a prototype or idea into production grade infra. A sweeper, someone who cleans up UI, simplifies the code and system, unships, optimizes performance. A grower takes a product that has been built and iterates on it to improve product market fit. And a maintainer owns a mature system to make it secure, reliable, fast, and efficient.
Imagine being the maintainer.
You say that. Sunil and I were talking about this beforehand.
Just a Dungeons and Dragons ass tweet, dude. First of all, it's like a skill sheet or whatever. The second is there's no way that let's say like Cloudflare puts out a job rec saying we're looking for a senior grower on our team.
I think I'm gonna defend Boris a little bit here.
Go on.
In that, okay, I rolled my eyes 6 months ago when all the labs started like taking away the the roles of software engineer as titles and product managers, and everyone's getting members. I think that's
growers. These AI companies.
Hear me out.
Yeah.
I think members of the technical staff is probably more directionally accurate over the mid to long term than these titles. And we can get into that another time. I've ranted on Twitter about this. But also, like, if I had to build a team today and I could compose it in any way, I think I would build it around having juniors and mid-level devs largely responsible for doing the first pass at implementing features and like really focusing on shipping the first pass. And this does not mean like not reading the code, not taking time to make sure it's QA'd and stuff, but putting them on the front line to get stuff shipped, and then having what I like to call software gardening. I'm a gardener of the code base, where
You're
the more
like coined
senior,
the term. Like I've heard it now a couple of times.
like because it is so much easier to make changes to code, and people are certainly less tied to code than they used to be. Like it used to be like, if you want to go change other people's codes, like it could sometimes be taboo. And in today's age, like people are far less tied to their code. So like getting that first implementation out and then cleaning up, get it stable, make sure error logging is good, observability is good, it's performant, the architecture and abstractions are good, kind of reserved for the more senior folks. I don't know. I think that would be an interesting way to work.
Yeah, do you really think you wouldn't build new features if you were like more senior? Like, wouldn't you be doing all 5 of those roles? Like, by the way, those map onto like existing things. Prototypers are like designers in an engineering heavy company. Maintainers are like QA teams, etc., etc. Like I said, it's just
To an extent, this is how I've always worked, where I like really enjoy going across the stack and like either like trying to come up with
like, I guess what I'm saying is I'm calling bullshit on this specific one.
Yeah,
like, I don't know you're positive on it, but me, I'm like super negative.
I don't think it's those 5 archetypes, but I do think there is a world where like I said, that's how I would want to try and build a team right now, because I think that is how I could iterate with a group of developers to build software the fastest and keep it reliable. That's my take.
I have no idea where things go. I don't know that I agree with that. I don't know that I agree with the tweet. I just don't agree. I don't know what things are gonna. I think it.
All right, I'm wrong.
Any predictions?
I don't think I'm wrong. I think
the like.
I think specializations do change.
I think it doesn't make sense to make predictions like that. In that, could loops not like with what they're trying to do? Could I not have a maintainer loop and a like?
I guess it is kind of contradictory with his tweets from the week before.
Oh yeah, so that's Boris. I think we're 2-1 on that. We've decided that you're positive, but sure.
You put the tweet bogus. That's how you end up in the maintainer position.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I'll be the idea guy shipping my
using your Gbrain and
Stack. Let's just say you're the return of the idea guy. You just need a technical co-founder to do your thing for you.
All right. To close things out, I don't know if you guys have any predictions to make that you want to track, but I have one that I want to get on the record. My hot take that we need receipts for is I think that codecs and Claude Code start gating and moving more functionality out of their harnesses and into the cloud and behind API access, because I don't think their models are moat. And I think building good harness features is one of the only ways that they're going to be able to kind of lock people into their ecosystems going forward.
So you're already seeing this. Like, I think like OpenAI's acquisition of Ona was like a sign. Ona was Gitpod. So I assume they're going to make like execution environments for that, but not in front of the model, but actually like behind the model as an execute tool or a run tool or something like that. They're already doing this. They were already shipping web search, etc., etc. I don't know how much money they plan on making for it, but definitely in the sense of stickiness and out of the box usefulness. Yeah.
I think you have to look at something like computer use. You have to look at emulate and you have to look at computer use. You have to see how good computer use is getting at like being able to autonomously test stuff. How good emulate is at being able to create these test environments. And so the factor of those two gets rid of that like need to have things locally on your computer. I feel like I don't know enough about the games behind the scenes to like be able to be like, but it makes sense.
Yeah.
Also, as you get into like really fast models, like less latency between is probably like going to be a selling point.
Yeah.
Maybe you end up on like discounted inference or something. Because I mean, what each ton with tool calling takes 100 milliseconds round trip.
I'm not going to try to pretend like I know the answer here.
You could offer a discounted fast mode if you're running it in the same data center the GPUs are in, because you're doing inference right on the right next to it, which is interesting.
Do either of you have hot takes today?
The one that I'm thinking about, probably just because of myself, is number of people who are going to have mental breakdowns by working way too hard.
Yeah.
Will spike probably around Thanksgiving, etc., like around the later part of the year. I think like summer's here now, the sun's out, etc. As the weather starts getting worse and AI psychosis like kicks in across more 100 like
Once Rhys gets Fable back.
Once I get Fable back.
once you get Fable back, like I think like insurance claims will jump, mental health stuff, offices will start having more. Meta used to do this, like little pods that you can take naps in.
Napping pods.
Exactly,
The return of the napping pods
Exactly.
is...
Well, Meta is bringing back their snack counters, is what I heard.
There was a really good Chetzian tweet on this. He was like, "Oh, the tools are supposed to make us faster or make us work less, but everyone I know is like working harder than ever."
Yeah,
Yep.
100%.
The AI tools I feel like have really shifted the relationship with work. Like I would like slam my head against a problem for like a work day and then go home and be exhausted and then like, oh, it'll click the next day. Whereas like with the AI stuff, you kind of just like push through it, but like you don't know that you're pushing through it. And it's very easy to like ignore a little.
Oh, there have been times where I'm like falling asleep. I'm like, okay, I just need to type out the prompt and hit enter, and then
And it's actually really like, I mean, the way that I do actually think that there's like a funny overlap between LLMs and gambling. Like every prompt is just like a spin at the slot machine.
and you get like
Where
$6.
it's like,
should-
yeah, maybe I can
We
get
should
close.
probably do a full episode. One of our core points is like mental health and AI usage.
Yeah.
Let's plan on doing that. Do you have any hot takes for the episode?
My like closing would be two. One would be one I tweeted out forever ago, which was more companies go to be API first.
I want the world.
More like discoverability around that. And I'm like very hopeful that they implement something like CIMD, dynamic client registration, like anyone can authenticate to it. And then the other one is loops aren't bad, they're different. It's a way of creating like different products. You're like playing this house of cards of inference where it actually like you're playing this house of cards of inference where I had this one tweet where it was this valley of despair where if you're just prompting normally, it's actually a really bad place to be in comparison to writing by hand or like full agentic. There's like kind of an other side of that valley where it's like you have a bunch of inference, you have agents monitoring your deploys, you have them monitoring your analytics, you have them auto fixing, and it's like a completely different type of software engineering. I don't know that it's not bad, it's different.
Rhys,
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to tell you what a hot take is. It's not meant to be nuanced and like it's supposed to cause drama.
Okay, loops of the future.
There you
Websites are done.
And there's the
API only.
psychosis.
There you go. That's what I'm.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Please let us know what you want to hear us yap about. Our next episode, we're going to deep dive on each of our workflows and how we actually do work day to
My
day.
brain set up.
Oh, mine
Rhys
was
is-
like 3 minutes where I'm like,
Debrief.
I'm really excited to see you guys.
Yeah, I think all three of us have wildly different ways
Yeah,
we work
very
with AI. So tune in then. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks again to
And-
the organizers of
Yep.
Yeah, thank you so much.
letting us record on the floor. Have a great conference, everyone.
Go team.
Go team.
Fucking hate you. I was on a roll. We've lost him, dude. La 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 la. I'm tall too, okay? I'm not tall.
Called the first episode 0.
You're gonna make me do this again?
Yeah.
Index 0, episode 1. Tell me what to say.
I don't know.
Welcome to the next token. Nope.
I screwed it up.